Okay, விட்டுரு.
மேல வச்சு விட்டுறோம். மேல வச்சு மேல வைங்க. கீழே வந்து
கரெக்டா
அதை வைங்க. ராஜ்கிக்கு மேல வைங்க. ராஜ்கிக்கு மேல வைங்க.
Ladies and gentlemen and esteemed guests, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you as we gather here today for a special tribute to a remarkable individual. We are here to honor the life and legacy of Mr. P.S.Raghavan, retired IAS. It's an occasion where we come together to reflect on the profound impact he has left on our lives and the world around us. We are deeply honored to have with us Honorable Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, gracing this occasion with her esteemed presence and for sharing her thoughts on Mr. P.S.Raghavan. Today, as we gather to pay tribute to the remarkable life of Mr. P.S.Raghavan, we reflect upon the extraordinary journey of a man whose legacy transcends many boundaries. To begin, I invite Mr. Arvind Dattar, Senior Advocate, to deliver the welcome address and set the context for today's program.
Before we start the proceedings, may I request all of you to stand for 1 minute silence in memory of... Honorable Finance Minister, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to be here. It just shows the affection that you have for Mr. Raghavan, and I personally know how often he spoke about you as well. We are assembled here to pay tribute to an outstanding civil servant in post-independent India. Shri Bahukutumbi Srinivasa Raghavan joined the West Bengal cadre of the Indian Administrative Service in 1952. Amongst the many positions he held, he was the Chief Secretary of Tripura. He was the head of 4 major public sector undertakings. I believe he put up the Durgapur steel plant from scratch. He headed the Damodar Valley Corporation, and the Durgapur steel plant was set up within time and within budget. As a civil servant, he had the privilege of working with 4 Prime Ministers, Pandit Nehru, Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri, Sri Gulzarlal Nanda, and Srimati Indira Gandhi. He spent almost 10 years in the Home Ministry and had occasion to deal with several momentous and historic events, including the Chinese invasion, the 1965 Pakistan War, the Mizo Rebellion, and the birth of Bangladesh. He was the member secretary of diverse committees, ranging from the Vikram Sarabhai Committee on Synchronous Communication Satellites to a committee to reorganize the IB and the CBI. India has only 2 people who have been appointed as US Congressional Fellows, one being Shri P.S.Raghavan and the other being the former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, Shri Subhash Kashyap. Shri Raghavan is also the chairman or member of several United Nations committees and had the occasion to lead India's delegations to several of these conferences and summit meetings. Shri Raghavan retired in 1987 after 35 eventful years in the civil service. After retirement, he kept busy as ever and took up writing and wrote a staggering 120 editorials, 500 articles, 2,800 columns in the Hindu and Business line, and I am told that he is in the Limca Book of Records for the largest number of columns. In Tamil, his articles appeared on current issues in Dinamalar, Dinamani, Tuglak, and other periodicals and magazines. He was also an active participant in several panel discussions on All India Radio and TV channels. A collection of his articles have now been published in 4 volumes by the ICFI University under the title Quintessence. He has written books in Tamil, Bengali, and also a collection of poems which just shows his versatility in so many languages. He also wrote an English novel which is now being republished by a London publishing firm as an e-book. On a personal note, I met Sri Raghavan when we were jointly giving lectures at the Bharatdas Institute of Management, and I immediately found that I was in the presence of a very remarkable man. In the course of my life, I had occasion to interact with several extraordinary personalities, and I can honestly say that Sri P.S.Raghavan was an outstanding person amongst the extraordinary. In life, we have several mentors and guides whose interaction changes you. I just give one anecdote. When I met Mr. Raghavan on various occasions, he once told me that after finishing the IAS, I believe they go for a Bharat Darshan, and he went to Rishikesh in 1952, where in the Shivananda Ashram, Swami Shivanandaji was still there, and young Mr. Raghavan asked him, "What advice would you give me?" And he said 3 things, and I tried to follow some of them. He said, first, get up at Brahma Muhurta. Second, always mix with good people, satsang. And thirdly, he says, remember the 25-year rule. When something bothers you, something untoward happens, remember that on a 25-year horizon, it is going to even out and you need not get unduly perturbed. I tried to follow the thing of early rising and also the 25-year rule, but as a lawyer, it's not possible always to mix with good people. Sri Raghavan gave me a number of lessons, and it's a matter of pride for me to say that I had always benefited by interacting with him. I still remember going to his house in Nehru Nagar and having the Milo with a lot of discussion. And since time is short, I'll just end with a lovely poem he wrote on 29th of August 2022 when he entered his 96th year. He would have been 97, 29th August, but on 29th August 2022, he wrote this beautiful poem, and I'm grateful to Mrs. Geeta Manichandra to give this to me. Please listen to this. Today I enter my 96th year, and the poem begins. It's titled 95 and at the crease. 95 and at the crease, spirits are up and mind is in peace. Nothing in life is left undone. Life's full course is duly run. Regrets nil, nor guilt to burn. It's all thumbs up wherever I turn. Reaching out and breaking walls, holding hands so no one falls, and finding joy in spreading joy, so length of life doesn't cloy. Not letting old age take its toll is what I found is life's only goal. This is the best. The best is there within your sight. The best is there within your sight. Jump, go for it with all your might. This then is my this year's call. Love to all. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you particularly for sharing that poem with us. I now invite Mr. S. Gurumurthy, Chartered Accountant and Editor of Tukla, to deliver his opening remarks and share a few words with us on Mr. Raghavan's legacy and the significance of his achievements.
Honorable Finance Minister and my friends on the dais and many eminent people who have gathered to recall Mr. Raghavan. My relationship with him is almost a quarter century old. But whenever we get up such meetings, whenever we recall people, it's always a thought that runs through my mind. Why do we recall great men? Because today there are so many people whose events are got up, who are recalled, and of course all kinds of encomiums are being paid. But those who have done something great, they don't claim to have done anything great, but only after they disappear, we understand their greatness. It is only very rarely we come across such people, because in the course of their life, many people advertise themselves and about whom many things are being written. So my mind always recalls a sloka in Bhagavad Gita. Yadyata charati sreshtaha tattat-teva itaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anvartate. We are not celebrating Mr. Raghavan. We are not recalling his great qualities. He is not there. But why are we recalling him, remembering him, speaking about him? Because unless we project the right kind of people to the society, unless we recall the greatness of great people, there will be no example for the society to follow. Yadyat acharati sreshtaha, whom the society thinks, we have all kinds of people who are being projected as great people today. And a wrong man being projected completely misleads the society. That also we have seen, we have experienced. So it is very necessary we recall great men like Raghavan, about whom many people will talk. But the most important thing is, in times of crisis, in times where there is darkness around, during the emergency for instance, where we personally felt that where to look at we didn't know. At that time, very, very small gatherings, small people, 4 or 5 people meeting. Many people used to show lead to us. It was that kind of guidance I had from Mr. Raghavan when I was myself in some personal crisis many times. 2 things are worth noting. When he made me when he and others made me the president of YMIA, I was almost 68 then. I said, what have I to do with to become the president of YMIA, Young Man's Indian Association? He said, Raghavan said, I am 88 and somebody is 89. And this institution has a property of almost 400-500 crores. Today we do not have the right kind of people to see that this property is not spirited away. You can understand how the society has dwarfed. So to a dwarfing society we need to project the right kind of people, and that is what Hilbert Haaland recalled when the Watergate scandal was being discussed in America. We need tall men, sun-crowned, who live above the fog in public life and private life. This is the message I got from Mr. Raghavan, and he was an equally great orator in Tamil. I used to ask him, how is it that you have been living so far away from Tamil Nadu, but still you speak as well as a great politician from the DMK could speak in Tamil? He used to say that I read in a Tamil medium school, stood by me even today. That is why I have been able to speak in Tamil. He was a great orator to the understanding of even the base masses. He ran an NGO which was interacting with very ordinary people in those days. So, to recall such a person is not for himself, not for his family, not for his friends. It is for the future generations that we have to set an example, that we call the right kind of people who will become example to the entire society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have with us a few distinguished people who have been deeply influenced by Mr. Raghavan's wisdom and vision, and who will be sharing a few words with us today to illuminate the profound impact of Mr. Raghavan's life and work. I extend a warm welcome to every one of them, and also to Mr. Raghavan's family members who are here with us today to share the reflections and memories of this remarkable individual. We've put together a glimpse of the life of Sri P.S.Raghavan through a photographer's lens. I welcome Mr. N.L. Raja, Senior Advocate, to share the presentation with us.
Friends, Honorable Finance Minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you all for being here with us today. Actually, the program was that at this point, the Finance Minister will address the gathering and leave, but she has said that she wants to stay here and listen to all of us talk about Mr. P.S.Raghavan. We are really indebted to you for your indulgence, and we hope that Mr. Raghavan is here somewhere listening to all of us, and he'll be truly delighted. I put together, as they say, a picture is more than 1,000 words. So we have tried to put together some photographs from Mr. Raghavan's life. This is a photograph of Mr. Raghavan with Jawaharlal Nehru. Let's switch up this here. This is a photograph of Mr. P.S.Raghavan with Sri Jawaharlal Nehru. Mr. Raghavan was the Secretary of the National Integration Council when Jawaharlal Nehru was the chairman. And that also led him on certain very interesting expeditions. For example, there was suddenly the media was agog with this news that Sheikh Abdullah had asked for Sikkim for Kashmir. So this led to some huge sensation in the media, and therefore, as a person who was involved in the National Integration Council, he was asked to go and talk to Sheikh Abdullah and ask him what exactly did he mean. So he went and met the Lion of Kashmir and asked him, sir, what do you mean by saying that you want a Sikkim for Kashmir? I mean, you want Sikkim to be annexed to Kashmir? You want the monarchy to be restored? The Lion of Kashmir wrote, no, I want Sikkim for Kashmir. And it's only half an hour into the conversation that he understood that Sheikh Abdullah wanted a scheme for Kashmir. So that's how they pronounce scheme. And that terribly confused him. This is his meeting with the first President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as you see, as a young secretary in the government. And then this is we're presenting a group of activists to Srimati Indira Gandhi. One photograph which we don't have, even though we tried to locate it, was a photograph with Lal Bahadur Shastri, for whom he had great admiration and great respect. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a photograph in the family archives. Then this is with the President of India, Sri R. Venkatraman. The next is a photograph with Jyoti Basu, Chief Minister of Bengal. His relationship with Jyoti Basu was so cordial that it led to the Congress filing several complaints against Mr. P.S.Raghavan, saying that he was being very partial to Jyoti Basu. This is because at several meetings where various leaders were summoned to discuss public problems, Jyoti Basu, who was a self-effacing person, used to go to the last row and sit there, and Mr. P.S.Raghavan apparently used to get up and call him to the front seat and ask him to first view his, come up with his views on various issues. So that led to a charge of favoritism against Jyoti Basu, which of course everybody knew was not true. Yes, he was very fluent in Bengali, and this is a photo. Now let's look at a few photographs of his discharging public duties. This is his work. This is he at his desk as the Chief Secretary of Tripura. And this is how he went in search of insurgents in Tripura. No desk work for the secretary. He just used to go into the forest to see whether he could identify the insurgents, talk to them, try to make them look at things in a different way. And this as a leader of India's delegation in the UNCTAD Geneva, as a chairman of the UN Committee on World Food Security, Rome, where he had occasion to interact with Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. We're glad to have Dr. Soumya Swaminathan here with us. He has told us about the interactions he had with him and how they shared some very valuable information on how to improve India's food security. Then, of course, he spent some time in Thailand, and this is a photograph of him with President Suharto of Indonesia. And this is signing an agreement for purchase of wheat from Australia. So look at how much he has travelled in the discharge of his official duties all over the world, really interacting with, and he was a very close friend of Henry Kissinger. And once again, that's one photograph which we are not able to dig up. And as a CMD inspecting a production unit, any work that is given to him, obviously, as we all know who have interacted with him, will receive undivided attention and interest. And it is from him, I should say, that I learned that thought must always precede word. Any question you ask him, he will immediately not reply. He will close his eyes, think for a couple of minutes, and then the words will flow. So from him, many of us learned that thought must always precede word. So a few family photographs. Here you have a photograph of the newly wedded. And this is with the family on vacation in Darjeeling. Middle-aged marital bliss, the happy couple smiling away. With his sisters, whom he loved dearly and would fondly recall to us when we went and visited him of his involvement with his sisters. And this is a photograph of Mr. V.Raman, another remarkable individual on the right, the T-shirt. He was responsible for putting together research and analysis wing. And as Nalini, Mr. P.S.Raghavan's daughter, would say, he didn't get married at all. And as everybody in the family always pondered, was it because he did not marry that he was always given these most dangerous assignments? Apparently the family says that he would disappear for months together. Nobody knew where he was. And for 2 hours one day, when I went to visit Mr. P.S.Raghavan, I was privy to a conversation between the brothers on how he unearthed certain terrorist activities. And it was the most amazing recount of espionage work that I have ever heard. The next day he said he was addressing YMA on anti-terrorism activities. So he invited me to attend that meeting. And at that meeting, it was a revelation. I mean, there is a world out there like this which we don't even know. And it is because of people like Mr. V. Raman that all of us are even sleeping peacefully. So, you know, the brothers themselves are phenomenal. And as I said, Nalli used to say that we don't know whether he did not get married because he was given all these dangerous assignments, or he was given these dangerous assignments because he was not married. Because it was quite unfair to visit somebody who was married with these assignments, because it meant really going into the hideouts of terrorists, trying to find out what exactly they were up to and trying to work out strategies to nullify all their efforts. This is another great person who nobody even talks about him today, but the amount of sacrifice and the work that he has done for the country is truly remarkable. This is a family group photo taken during the family function, and then again a happy family photo during another family function. And then what did he do after retirement? I mean, for a person who was endowed with such brilliance and such energy, 60, 62 is a very unfair age to retire. So what did he do? But for him it did not matter, because look at the type of activities he was involved in. Here he had great affection and regard for Lakshmi Krishnamurti, and he interacted with her, Satyamurthi's father, and Satyamurthi's daughter, and this is a book on Satyamurthy which has been released. And this is the book Quintessence, which Mr. Arvind Attar had mentioned. They brought out all his writings from ants to Antarctica. That's how he would address this. That he has written from ants to Antarctica. Everything under the sun I have written, and everything is all there in Quintessence. And he was always very proud of this photograph, where his book, The Call of the 20th Century, was released by President Abdul Kalam. And yet again, book release function. I mean, he would have broken a record for presiding over the most number of book release functions, I think. And officiating at convocations, inaugurating higher education summit. And just look at the range of subjects that he was talking over. Seminar on technology marketing. He was presiding over a seminar on technology marketing. And then he is addressing a seminar on the Indian Constitution, what changes should be brought into the Indian Constitution. And then with the finance minister who used to visit him quite frequently. There's a very interesting episode in Ramayana. I always think as a lawyer that many of these principles that we attribute to Western thought actually had the genesis in India, but we don't talk about it. Arvind and I know that there is a saying in law that the life of law is not logic but experience, right? It is not only life of law, but even administration, I'm sure, must be informed by experience. And you have this event in Ramayana where Rama wants to take a decision as to whether Vibhishan should be let into the fold or should be denied entry into the fold. And there are various people who advise him against it. Then Rama turns to Hanuman and says, what do you think? And Hanuman says, no, we should take him in, because Hanuman had visited Lanka. He has seen the type of respect that Vibhishana demanded, and he has also seen, he has gone into Vibhishana's house, and he also says that when Ravana wanted to kill me, he is the person who quoted dharma and laws and said, don't do this. Now, therefore, the life, Rama then says that because of the experience that you have had and the advice you give me, and since your advice is based on experience, I will accept it. Now, there are people in administration like our Honorable Finance Minister who knew that this rich experience should not go wasted, and every time and whenever she could have an opportunity to visit Mr. P.S.Raghavan, she visited him and took his counsel and advice and discussed many issues with him. This is a photo which will always bring a lump to my throat. Arvind and I know that this is not going to happen again. And this is how he shared his experience with all of us. And we used to find time to go and sit with him. And as a lawyer, he used to tell me that at the age of 24, he was a presiding officer in a court. And there used to be this gentleman with long flowing robes, the turban, who used to appear and bow low to him and say, Dharma Avadar, and then start his arguments. Right? And he held my hand and said, at the age of 24, here I have an elderly person addressing me as Dharma Avatar. And he used to say, Raja, as a lawyer, you must know how to address a judge. And let me take you into confidence that gentleman never lost a single case in my court. So he used to tell me that these are the lessons that we must learn. So this is a lovely, some lines from his book. As years pass, and they seem to do so at a breakneck speed, a person who has held positions and authority and power is up against an oblivion of sorts, and even his own offspring and close relatives becoming hazy of his past record, resulted in his being subjected to irrelevant or what sometimes strikes him as a cavalier treatment. This makes him oftentimes fall into the habit of recalling his conversation at every conceivable opportunity, the real or the exaggerated, or even fancied roles he played in past events relating to his careers, little realizing that his listeners, far from being impressed, were being bored stiff, if not actually put off. So this is a recount of his last years in life, and this is what he was. I've seen him in close quarters for the last 30 years. This is what he was. The best way to cool down the fires of emotion, feeling and passion and be self-possessed and serene is to follow the practice of getting outside one's skin and watch the events surrounding oneself as a spectator from without. That is the role he assigned to himself right through his life. He looked on everything that happened around him and even to himself as a spectator and remained truly detached. So, blessed sir, from wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. A picture speaks 1,000 words, they say, and this presentation truly did, and gave us a visual impact of the wide-reaching influence that Mr. Raghavan's life had. Thank you so much. I now welcome Mrs. Nalini Gopinath to share her personal memories of Mr. Raghavan and of the impact that this has had in her life. I humbly request you to honor us with the reflections.
I'm not my father's daughter. I can't speak extempore, so I have to do my notes. On behalf of Appa's two sisters and myself, I thank you all for having been part of his life for these many years. He never stinted on praise, so I'm sure each one of you know how much he cherished your friendship, enjoyed debating various topics, either in person or through long email and WhatsApp messages. Thank you for arranging this meeting to remember and celebrate my father. And after listening to Arvind and Raja, I'm learning more about a father, a side of him that I did not know. I don't have the skill of speaking extempore like my father, so you'll see me looking down at my notes now and then. At the crematorium, the priest called me aside and told me that Appa died at the most auspicious time. Uttarayanam Kalam, Shukla Paksham, Dvitiya Tithi. I'm told that when the sun is ascending from south to north till the June 21st is the Uttarayanam Kalam, and Vibhishana lay on a bed of arrows for 58 days waiting for, Bhishma, it seems, lay on a bed of arrows for 58 days waiting for Uttarayanam before he ascended. So this is just the kind of romantic end my father would have wished for. My father lost his father when he was 14. It remained a defining moment in his life, giving him a long insecurity about the fragility of life and the responsibility of taking care of his mother and 3 siblings. But in those 14 years, my grandfather instilled in him a strong work ethic, a disciplined lifestyle, punctuality, and a lasting love of language and poetry. These remained with him all his life. His mother, widowed at 36, with 4 children to bring up and educate, taught him to strive his best to bring stability to the family. He was always hardest on himself, questioning whether he did the right thing, said the right thing, and whether he could do something better. And like most artists, needed a lot of confidence boosting behind the scene to assure him that his audience loved his presentations. His family financial situation improved after he joined the service and married my mother, but he lived with the guilt of having done well compared to many in his family. He was a complicated personality, but with a childlike curiosity and a love of learning that he retained throughout his life. My brother and I grew up listening to his favorite songs and poetry, Bharatiyar, English classical poetry, Omar Khayyam, Kabir Das, Rabindranath Tagore. He was fluent and well-read in all these 4 languages. His designated role model for me was the brave and courageous Rani of Jhansi. I'm still trying to find the horse and the battlefield. He retired from service in 87, moved to Chennai in 88, and started his second full-time career as an activist, journalist, public speaker, and public policy wonk. If you were to ask me, though he had a very interesting and varied positions in the service of the Indian government, he truly blossomed after retirement, devoting all his time to what he loved best, writing and engaging with people. All of you present here and good friends that went before him gave him your support, your friendship, and made his life interesting and motivated him with your opinion and ideas. For that, I sincerely thank you. He had a good life and went the way he wanted, without any suffering and with his faculties intact. Life will need to go on for his sisters, myself, son-in-law Gopi, daughter-in-law Lata, 4 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. Even though we will miss his physical presence, he will live on in our memories and in the many stories of his life. I will end with a verse from one of Appa's favorite book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. "'Tis all a checkerboard of nights and days, where destiny with men for pieces plays. Hither and thither it moves and mates and slays, then one by one back in its closet lays." Thank you.
I extend my heartfelt thanks to Mrs. Nalini Gopinath for sharing with us her touching reflections on Mr. Raghavan. I now request Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson of M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, to say a few words about Mr. Raghavan.
Honorable Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Mrs. Nalini Gopinath, and friends, thank you for inviting me to say a few words about Sri P.S.Raghavan. I unfortunately did not have the privilege of knowing him very well, even though I have seen him on many occasions. But I think my father and he were very close, and they shared a lot. And as was being spoken about him, so many things, starting from the time when they were born, I think just 1 year apart. Both of them had birthdays in August. They both served in government around the same period of time, served with several prime ministers of India and worked with many different governments and participated in the building of modern India through the 1950s, 60s and 70s. After retirement, of course, both of them continued to engage very actively in public and civil life in different ways. Both of them were, I think, prolific writers and spoke and wrote and engaged with people as well as with the media quite a lot. And Sri Raghavan was one of the founding trustees of the Society for Rural and Sustainable Agriculture and Development that my father established when he was setting up the M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation. So under the Tamil Nadu Societies Registration Act, RISAD was set up, and Sri Raghavan was one of the founding members of the society, and he served as a member for almost about 20 years. Apparently he was very regular at all the meetings that were held, annual meetings, and despite not being technically from the same field of agriculture or rural development, he was deeply interested in the programs and in the impact that it had on people, and he took a great deal of interest, listening with a lot of interest and encouraging the scientists as they presented their ideas and their projects, but also giving a lot of inputs, giving a lot of suggestions, and making very critical and constructive comments. I think my father and he had a sort of mutual admiration society, because I'm told by many people that many times they've heard my father praising him a lot, and similarly Mr. Raghavan also talking about, so probably they shared the same values, the same set of principles, and for them I think the country, always came first, and everything they did, they used to think about, how it would benefit the country. So personally, I think we have to be extremely grateful to people like Mr. Raghavan, really, for not just having had a long and distinguished career in public service, but also having inspired and motivated so many other people, as we heard, from speakers already in this room. I understand he was also a member of the International Society of Poets. So, and we heard one of the poems that he wrote on his 96th birthday, and it's wonderful that he stayed active till the very end. I think that itself is a blessing, apart from the fact, of course, that he passed away at a very auspicious time. So I wanted to convey on behalf of my father, of course, who's not there, but also on behalf of the M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, a very deep sense of gratitude, friendship, and warmth. Many of the foundation staff members, actually, when he passed away, I got a lot of messages from many of our staff members saying that my father was alive, then the first thing he would have done actually was to have called. And it's true that even till the very end, my father, when he used to hear of any such event, the first thing he used to say is, I want to dictate a letter, or I want to ring up and convey my condolences or wishes, whatever the occasion demanded. So I felt that it's my duty to come and speak, but also to learn so much. I have learned already from the previous speakers. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Soumya. I now invite Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, to share his experiences with Mr. Raghavan, who was a warm friend and mentor to him.
Very good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this function. Mr. Raghavan, I came to know of him when I came on retirement in 2005. He was a bewilderingly versatile man. He was any subject you give to him, he would be happy to speak on. I had very many personal anecdotes with him. He invited me to join the Hindu school organization on the governing body, and what he said to me was that the school has got enough funds, but I want people to safeguard those funds, and I want you to join. I mean, that is the kind of concern he had. And in all these meetings, he used to be so active and so involved in the discussions, particularly in matters relating to finance. He was a prolific writer, profound speaker, and a progressive thinker in everything that he did. And I had 2 or 3 personal anecdotes I thought I should mention. When my wife was seriously ill, he used to ring me up every night around 11 o'clock, asking for the progress of the treatment and the condition of her life. And almost every second day he will ask me to report to him what happened, whether there is any need for change of treatment and so on. It was very remarkably, touching your heart, because very few people do that. And I was very much moved. And whenever I spoke on any occasion in public meetings, he was there. And he was there not only to comment, but also to congratulate on the views taken by us. The third point was, he released a book. I released my book in 2008. I requested him to release the book. He came very willingly, and he spoke so well on that occasion about the book, about the state of democracy in this country. And he used to refer the Election Commission as the 8th wonder of the world. And very fortunately, when he released his memoirs, he invited me and Mr. Sitharaman to release and receive the book. Even though he came on a wheelchair, I could see his infectious smile and his anxious details about the arrangement for the function and so on. I mean, a remarkable personality, a unique personality. He will always be in the memory of anybody with whom he comes into contact. And another thing, in the Hindu school meetings, he used to take so much of interest in the welfare of the children. He used to mentor them. Most of the meetings he will personally attend. He will ask me to join him. Finest experience I had in my life. I'll never be able to forget this great human person. My heartfelt condolences to the family, and I am sure that his books and his writings will always inspire the generations to come. They say heard melodies are sweet, and those unheard are sweeter. This is what John Keats said. Heard life of Mr. Raghavan was sweet, but I think unheard part of his life, many things that he did, many people not know, they are even sweeter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your personal experiences with Mr. Raghavan. I now invite Mr. N. Gopalaswamy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, to share his understanding of Mr. Raghavan's human nature.
Namaskaram to one and all. Honorable Finance Minister, dignitaries of the rise, and those who have come here to listen to this remarkable person's life. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to work under Mr. Raghavan because I moved to Delhi only in 1992, and he had by the time left. But I had heard from people who have worked under him in the Home Ministry. I mean, he was looking after the policy and policy planning division of the Home Ministry, and therefore all the officers who joined the Home Ministry will have to go and spend time with him to study under him for about a week about the security situation and the policy planning things which the MHA was attempting. So this is one issue. But after I moved to Chennai, I had occasion to meet him a couple of times in some meetings where both of us were members. But one of the issues which remarkable about his remarkable life, there was a senior officer of the government of Gujarat, my senior, his batchmate, Mr. M. Shivagyanam, who stayed in Chennai, in Adyar area. The way Mr. Raghavan looked after him was remarkable. I mean, Mr. Raghavan must have been elder to him at least for about 2-3 years. Of course, they knew each other in Delhi. But after one stint in Delhi, Mr. Shivagyanam never spent time in Delhi. So most of the time he was in Gujarat. Mr. Shivagyanam stayed along with his wife, but his wife passed away, and after that he was alone. And his only son living in US. The care with which Mr. Raghavan looked after Mr. Shivagyanam was remarkable. I mean, he himself was aged, more aged than Mr. Shivagyanam. But Shivagyanam was living alone, and he used to get worried. And Mr. Raghavan used to talk to him very often. Not only that, he used to go and visit him also. And when in the last days of Mr. Shivagyanam, he passed away in 2020, Mr. Raghavan was one person who gave him all the medical help, moved him to the hospital, etc. And one touching instance there was that Mr. Shivagyanam did not want to be put on the ventilator, etc., etc. So he had requested his son in an email that he wouldn't like to be. And Mr. Raghavan knew about it. Mr. Shivagyanam's son was living far away. All he could do was to send that copy of the email to Mr. Raghavan. Mr. Raghavan took the trouble of going to the hospital, convincing the doctors that this is the request of the person. Therefore, please abide by that. It was remarkable that somebody at his age could look after somebody who was even older than him, not only psychologically soothing him, but also looking after his health and all that. So that's such a remarkable life of being of service to other people. Of course, I came to know Mr. Raghavan much more in terms of the exchange of mails. We used to be in a group. Many of us are in that group, and used to be exchange of mails on various subjects. and one could understand the depth of knowledge, the width of knowledge. And the one instance which really took my breath away was his writing a poem in Hindi. Now, he also mentioned there saying that he had learned Hindi when from the Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prasar Sabha. I also learned, and he said he had passed 4 examinations. I also had passed 4 examinations, but my Hindi was never anywhere what he could remember even at that age. Personally speaking, I was very grateful to him for one turn, good turn he did to me. When I wrote against my fellow commissioner, that was in 2009, nobody in Delhi spared me, excepting one person, Justice Verma. All of them were at my throat, so to say. Not that I exposed my throat, I couldn't care less for these people. But outside of Delhi, there were only 2 people who wrote in favor of what I had done. One was Mr. Chu, and the other was Mr. P.S.Raghavan. I will always remember him for that. Much later, once after I had come here, he took from me the copy of my report to the president and then commented on it afterwards. Such people are rare. Today we have got together to pay our tribute to such a remarkable person. It's very difficult to imagine that such a person existed. All of us, at least for myself, speaking for myself, I can only say that I was very lucky to have been there, to know him, and to have lived in the time when people like Raghavan lived. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful reflections. I welcome Dr. K.V.S. Gopalakrishnan, President of P.S. Educational Society, to share his perspectives on Mr. Raghavan's fervor for learning.
Namaskar. I came to know Mr. P.S.Raghavan after I came to Chennai and settled down after my retirement because I had no occasion to see him earlier. But we had a common angle. We belonged to the same educational institutions where we studied. And he was also a part of this alumni association of the Ramakrishna Mission School there. There he used to recall how this educational institution shaped his life. I think sometime back, Ms. Nalini was talking about Mr. Raghavan's father having passed away. Maybe it was 1940 or 41. From 41 to 43, he studied in the Ramakrishna Mission School, where his own uncle was the teacher. And he would say, my uncle was teaching me also in the 5th and 6th form, but the treatment would be like any other student, and he cannot be differentiating between me and the others. It was uniform. And he would also say, even though he was the one who was looking after all of us, never would he leak anything about the things. That was his ethics, that we should not be talking to our own people, even if it is your own relatives. That is the thing. He used to quote the same thing. In the same school, there was one of the doyens of this education in those days, Vasudevacharya, who started the Ramakrishna Mission School in T. Nagar in 1930s. His own adopted son was the teacher, N. Srinivasachari, who was teaching in the same school. But he said, insofar as this discipline is concerned, everyone comes under the same umbrella. And he had quoted in one of his anecdotes, Mr. P.S.Raghavan said, I think Vasudevacharya was walking in the corridors, and then he pulled up an English teacher who was coming late to the school. Though this man was very reluctant to say anything, then he said, no, don't repeat it again. And the same Srinivasachari he would quote for his having pun on the words. I think that was typical of him. When a student came late, then he said, yes, you don't be late hereafter, go, Seridam Arindu Ser. I think that, and the Ser, he made it to chair, Chairidam Ser, and that was the type of teachers he had. And then he was telling all these people, they taught us values. He recollected how in the school, in the 2 years, he was not failing in the common classes once a week,
where Kallidakuruchi Ramakrishna Sastrigal was reciting Ramayanam and taking this moral instruction class. This is how we had brought up. That is why even when he was decorated as the distinguished alumnus in that school in 2005, he was finding fault with the present generation of teachers, how the values have gone down the drain and how they should refix these values in life through the students. That was the type of person he had. And we were also associated for some time in the Rajaji Center for Public Affairs, with which I came to know him also. There was an occasion in October 15, 2017. 3 giants were honored in the Noble 90, and it was none else than Mr. P.S.Raghavan, the well-known chartered accountant with the philanthropic outlook G. Narayanaswamy, and the income tax man Mr. Rajaratnam. And what we found common in these people who were very good friends was they were intellectual giants, they had passion for public work, they were professional, thoroughbred professionals, and at the same time they were always following ethics and integrity in life. If at all something they wanted to teach, it is ethics and integrity, and it was very nice of him. Whenever he gave a word, he would keep up that. One day I had invited him for a talk on education. Of course, it was a memorial lecture, and it was Republic Day. Morning he went to OMIA. He was there for the unfurling of the flag, and then he landed because it was also very early. Then I said, "Sir, how could you make it? When you had called, how can I not be here?" So I think this education is a part of my passion, so I am here. This is the type of person with whom we have been interacting. He lived a full life and had been a mentor for all of us. Let us remember what he said and what he lived for. He was a role model for all of us. Thank you.
I extend my gratitude to Sir for sharing his insights on Mr. Raghavan's legacy. I invite Mr. V. Ranganathan, Chartered Accountant, to share a few words about Mr. Raghavan's character and his influence on those around him.
Namaskaram to all of you. I can't claim the same level of intimacy and proximity to Mr. B.S.R. as many others who spoke before me. But then I am here, I actually squeezed myself into this line of speakers thanks to the benevolence of Mr. N.L. Raja. As a great admirer of Mr. Raghavan's writing, I used to read almost everything that he wrote in Business Line. And of course, I benefited from my interaction with him in course of time. Sometime in, I don't remember the year, I think must have been in the late 90s, when Mr. Yashwant Sinha was the finance minister. He had come down to address a meeting of the Madras Chamber in the Kanimara Hotel. I had reached the venue fairly early and I was walking in the reception area. When I found Mr. B.S.R. come across, he did not know me so well those days, but he knew me by my name. So I went across and paid my salutations to him, and then he said that I have come here early to meet Mr. Sinha. And do you know where this particular room is? In Kanimara there are these rooms like Arcot room, Binni room, etc. So he mentioned one of the rooms. So I escorted him as a matter of courtesy to the room. I went along with him. And then he sat down. Then after a couple of minutes I wanted to leave. He said, "No, don't leave. Anyway, I'm sitting alone. Sit with me." After about 10 minutes, Mr. Sinha came, and both of them perhaps knew each other very well. So they were exchanging pleasantries and greetings. And then Mr. Raghavan also introduced me to Mr. Sinha, saying that he's a chartered accountant, he deals with taxation and all that. So they settled down to sort of chat. But I thought that was the moment I should leave. So I was about to slip out. And Mr. Raghavan said, "No, don't go away, sit." So I sat there in the conversation. Of course, they didn't talk anything very sensitive or very confidential, but nevertheless, for him to feel that it is important that I should also be part of that discussion there. Though I had just gone to escort him and take him there. It was not pre-set that I should be part of the conversation. And definitely they were old friends who were chatting something there. But sort of impressed me about the kind of spontaneity and I don't know what to put as a good term to describe a person. It came so naturally to him that he thought that there's no harm. He's come along with me, so let him be part of the conversation. So that was my first interaction with him way back. Then roll forward a few years, around the COVID time, I started writing a blog, so I used to share some of my articles with Mr. Raghavan, and he was very meticulous to give a response, share some view, and of course our transaction went only on email. I never used to call him, disturb him on telephone, etc. So one day he called me. He said, "Ranganathan, how are you keeping? You are okay? Your family is okay?" I said, "Sir, all okay, sir." But he said, "No, I have not received any articles from you for the last 3-4 weeks." So I was thinking whether there was any health problem. I said, "No, sir, I have written 1 or 2, but I didn't think they were worthy of your reading or attention, so I didn't send it to you." No, you don't do the self-censorship. Whatever article you write, you send it to me. I enjoy reading them, but it also tells me that you are active and well. So that is a way of knowing how you are doing. Just look at this man. It was not that, I was somebody who was calling him, the gentleman said, the way he was calling somebody regularly to inquire about himself. I never did it. He's 30 years older than me. But this really swept me off my feet. I said, how can a person be like this? And these things you can't put on as an act. And there was really no need for him to interact with me on those terms. Couple of months after that, I had been sending him the articles. After that, I learnt my lesson. So whatever garbage I wrote, I was sending it to him. He called me and said, "This article which you sent yesterday, I want you to publish it in one of the main newspapers." I told him, "I don't have any access, sir, and then this also has got more number of words, they won't publish it." "Oh, is it so?" Then the conversation ended. Next morning he called me, he said, "Ranganathan, I have spoken to readif.com, the editor is known to me. They are willing to publish your article, so I will send you the email ID, so you please send it." And I sent it and they published it. I think, look at this man. These are all extremely difficult quality for you to see in many people. Amazing. And the other thing which he used to do very meticulously was, before every budget, union budget, he'll send me a mail. "Please send me 4 bullet points, what you feel should be there in the budget." I used to send 4 bullet points. After the budget, he'll send me, "Please give 2-3 points, bullet points." I had never asked him what he did with all this. But the very fact that he considered me worthy of sharing some points, those were greatly motivating. So we are all talking about his intellect. I know it is very large, none of us can really measure it. But I leave the thought with you. You decide whether his heart was bigger than his intellect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your personal experiences with him. I now invite Mr. R. Anand, Chartered Accountant, to recount the various institutions that Mr. P.S.Raghavan was associated with.
Honorable Finance Minister and my dear friends. With so many of the speakers having already spoken, I really did not know how to fill in the blanks, so to say. But my first interaction with Mr. P.S.Raghavan was in 1994, August. I remember the month and not the date. And it was the cabin of Venugopal, who was sitting here, who introduced me to him. A business line was launched in that year, and I started writing in the paper. P.S.Raghavan was already writing in the Hindu. And I used to follow his articles for 2 reasons. To enjoy the sheer beauty of the English language. That was the first thing I really relished about Mr. P.S.'s writing. The second is the range of topics and subjects that he used to write. Now, after I started writing in the business line, we used to constantly exchange notes. I remember one telephonic conversation we had. He called me. He said, "Anand, you made 3 mistakes in your article yesterday." I said, "Sir, what are those mistakes?" I thought they were all really okay as far as I knew. And without reference to the paper, he just remembered those 3 contextual errors. And not only that, he asked me, are you taking down notes? I know you're on landline and I don't want you to listen in a flippant manner and forget about it. The concern that he had was that you need to make those amends, correct it and see that they don't reappear again. He had no really motivation to actually motivate me, but he did that out of sheer concern that these mistakes should not occur. That's number 1, experience. Number 2, of course, Raja asked me to talk about the associations that I worked with him. I was sort of associated with him in 3 associations. One, of course, is Rajaji Center for Public Affairs, about which Mr. Gopalakrishnan spoke. The 3 giants who were present there, G. Narayan Swamy, Rajaratnam and P.S.Raghavan. Somehow GN used to invite me for all the trustees meeting, though I didn't have an official role. I was sitting only to listen to these 3 giants. And I distinctly remember in one conversation, a sort of a heated exchange of words between Narayan Swamy and Mr. Rajaratnam. People will be wondering how Rajaratnam can talk in a very heated way. It is an argument which was flying around. The calming influence that Mr. BSR brought into the discussion, and finally BSR convinced both of them this was the way to proceed on a particular issue. I don't remember it. But the man's ability to be so polished, so persuasive, again using the language skills, the body language, show that he would have been easily one of the best foreign ministers had he been there. The diplomacy, the art of persuading people. Then, of course, YMIA, Mr. Gurumurthy is now the president and we all work with him in YMIA. Mr. BSR was associated with the organization for several years. And every of the meetings there will be some issue, this, that. Finally, Mr. P.S.Raghavan's view will prevail, not because it was the strongest view. It was the way he presented his view. The third organization, of course, Palkiwala Foundation, which is really dear to our heart, apart from other organizations, is every of our activity, Datar knows it very well, Mr. BSR will follow meticulously, whether it's the arbitration center or the foundation, the choice of speaker, what happened in the meeting. And of course, in 2020, when the Honorable Finance Minister came and we had the centenary celebration, Mr. BSR, with all his failing health, he came to the PS Higher Secondary School. He was there listening to the lecture of the Honorable Minister. So that was the interest he took in every institution or association he was involved in, and he expected others also to do it the same way. Not that he would punish you, but the way he will sort of, in a polished way, reprimand you will also is a strong message that you need to be focused in what you need to do. We all cherish every little meeting that we had with him. In fact, 10 days before he passed away, I was mentioning to Nalini Madam, he sent a message actually. I thought he was actually okay. But after 10 days, somehow we knew that he passed away. May his soul rest in peace. We all will cherish every minute of our association with him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful remarks on Mr. Raghavan. As we commemorate the life and contributions of the late Mr. P.S.Raghavan, it is a privilege to welcome a distinguished guest whose insights and experience will undoubtedly enrich our tribute. I am honored to extend a warm invitation to Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman and request her to share a few words about her experiences with Mr. Raghavan.
Namaskaram to all of you. I'm more here like a Shishya, not as a finance minister or anything, because the passing away of Sri Raman, I will confess I've lost a mentor. Whether he taught me as a Shishya to mentor, I always have considered his advice, his counseling, his periodic messaging to me, and the few visits that I've made have all been very important for me. So I'm here to pay my respects to a teacher who just appeared and kept supporting me till as long as he could. it is, I can't recall the first time I met him. It's a shame. I can't really recall when I met him the first time. But it was much before I became a minister. That much I can say. And I've benefited immensely by the articles that I've read of his in the Hindu business line. I hadn't noticed so much his writings in Hindu, but yes, Hindu business line. And I agree that he had written on so many different topics, which just makes you think that, if this is the kind of versatility with which he could write on an expanse of topics, he should have been a big, immense, important member of any team in the bureaucracy. By talking with him and also by reading a few of his writings and also the memoir, I'm able to place the few important instances where, at whatever level he was in his role as a bureaucrat, he had sensed some developments and at least conveyed his thoughts. And as a result, you find a mind which was evolving in every one of the roles that he played. But wherever he was, as I say, heart and soul, body and mind and prana, all together in the work that he was doing. And that is the reason I would think early in his career, I don't know whether it is Barakpur or Midnapur where he was posted. He was astonished to see more than 6,000 cases pending, because as district magistrate, they had a magisterial role to play as well, not just the district collector, but magisterial role. And he couldn't just believe 6,000 cases can be pending. And in his 3 to 4 year tenure in that place, he consciously maintained reducing the pendency as one of his priority. And by the time he left the place for the next posting, the pendency had come down to 1,000 only, which means at his own effort, he had cleared about 5,000 odd cases. For a young officer, that must have been a bit of a rigor and bit of a monotony, and not glamorous at all, but that was the dedication with which he was from the beginning, that's how he had to get going with delivering on his duty. And somewhere I think he also, Nalini, please do correct me if I'm wrong, his early years, whether as a bureaucrat, late 50s and early 60s, were not easy, because he had to keep his family with a salary, maintain the extended family with a salary, and there were times of running the household with a shoestring budget, and he does record it somewhere, and clearly it wasn't as if he was doing what he was doing because he had the comfort of taking care of his financials. No, he was hard up, but he didn't allow that to interfere in his efficiencies. I think after moving from his district postings, he's held some of the very enviable positions. To be in Home Ministry for 9 years is not at all easy. And at a time when India was going through severe crisis, I heard Data talk about the challenges, whether it is the Mizo rebellion or the Chinese or the Pakistani war and so on. And the Bangladesh division, I think at that time he was posted elsewhere, but then having been in the Home Ministry, you see the intensity with which all this happens. And I think that is the reason why he somewhere describes himself as he felt himself to be like a bee in a bottle, desperately wanting to free himself from that and do something more constructive. So moving to the center and taking up main responsibilities was a very big attraction for him. And at whatever level he was, I did mention this once before, at whatever level he was, he sensed certain collaterals which will fall as a result of policy decisions. One such one was probably for want of oversight or for due following of the statutory requirements, the implementation of the national language. He did highlight at whatever level, saying one shouldn't rush through this. It's important to be sensitive to it. And unfortunately, there was this push to implement it because the statutes required it to be implemented by a certain time. And naturally, it had its severe collaterals. There were a lot of protests. But Raghavan was somebody who knew the requirement to balance with political realities. And it did see the fallout, which unfortunately others didn't see, but Raghavan did notice. And I wouldn't be wrong if I labor on one point, which since then, since the first Prime Minister's time till 2016, I would say, when he had written about it once again, after so many decades, is that India should make a lot more attempt and effort to rid itself of the colonial baggage. He was very keen on that. He, in fact, felt that that was an opportunity missed out since the first Prime Minister, since after that as well, that we did not do enough to remove those colonial hangovers that were still bothering our administration, our systems, our laws, our bureaucracy, and so on, that he, even in 2016, writes about it all over again, saying this is an important thing that we need to come out of it, we have to remove it. And for a bureaucrat who's in the system, going through the decision-making process, also to constantly keep feeling that in his mind, tells you that it is important for India to keep that on the agenda, whether you do it incrementally or do it faster. It is something which was very severely felt by Mr. Raghavan. One other thing which I've heard him speak to me on those one or two rare occasions is about the importance of technology and how it is necessary to bring in efficiency through technology. And in fact, he probably mentioned it once to me, and I've also read about it, that the way in which technology is moving and the way in which it is being acceptable to people, how people are also adapting to it, it will soon pose a question on issues like copyright, patents. All those also will get, disrupted. And we need systems to be ready to have the benefits of technology, but yet questions on copyright and other things may also come out. He has not elaborated it to me, but I later found that he had that kind of a thought as well on how technology is going to be important in our lives. And he was quite savvy in the way in which he sent me messages using either the mail or WhatsApps or anything. And at a personal level, in whichever, subsequent to my taking over, getting into the government, well, before that, as a spokesperson, he has given me immensely lot of actionable advice. So did he when I was first brought into the ministry. And I can't really specifically but narrate one incident, so much in commerce, and then when I moved over to defense, he did give me one clue of an advice, saying it's a ministry which has a lot of challenges, not just because the border and everything else, but the maintaining the harmony between the uniformed and the civil officers is something which you may think that I'm exaggerating, but no, that's a live problem. You'll have to be tuned to it, you'll have to maintain it. Harmony between the uniformed service and the civilian is very important, and that's what you as a minister will have to keep in mind. Was a very vital advice he had given me after I entered the ministry, defense ministry. Well, there are so many other things, of course, we can speak about, but because his advices were more coming out of a wise head and with a heart which felt for India to move fast towards development, his counsel was of use for most people who wanted it, irrespective of the political dispensation to which they belonged. Initially, I was quite surprised that his advice was sought by most political parties in Tamil Nadu. I know Tamil Manila Congress, Mupanarji, the senior, had given him a lot of respect for his advice, and so was probably G.K. Vasan benefiting from it. So are the other political parties. I'm not naming each one of them, but every political party in Tamil Nadu. Maybe one or two exceptions, because I make a room for that. I don't want tomorrow early morning somebody to, oh no, finance minister was wrong. I'm not here as finance minister, but never mind. But she was wrong. My party has never taken advice from Mr. Raghavan. No disrespect for the ones who have gone away, but most political parties did think he had something to contribute to their party's ideology and thinking and how to serve the country. See, that is how versatile he was. There was no element of prejudice, no element of subjectivity, no element of putting his interests forward, or no element of playing one against the other. He was fair-minded as a good, matured, seasoned thinker, so he was acceptable for everybody for the kind of counsel he could give. It is a big loss for all of us. I suddenly remembered much before I came here that Mark Twain probably said somewhere that it is in human nature to exaggerate the virtues of the dead. But here I can say no exaggeration is enough of an exaggeration when you talk about Mr. Raghavan. He was a treasury of India's 60 years of attempt to stand up on its own as a democracy. The wonderful service which stands by as the bureaucracy, the steel frame. He represented the best of it. He had strong feelings on how this nation's bureaucracy can serve the country. He stood out as an exemplar. And that bee in a bottle which wanted freedom actually saw the freedom and was able to contribute even with that freedom is when he started writing in the papers. The columns that he's written, the edits that he wrote, the views that he expressed, and also the number of institutions where he had been associated with or as part of the advisory, or he himself founded, inclusive the China Study Center in Chennai, are all remarkable reflection of that scholarship that he had. But he was like, as they say in Tamil, kodathula itta vedakku. Not very many saw that light. But those of us who saw the light really thought we can have more of it if we had the time, or if we could bother him as many times as we could. So there's so much one can speak about him. He was a versatile person, generous to give, and on his own volunteered to support and advise and handhold. I'm an immense beneficiary of that. So with respects and grateful to every one of you who spoke about him. So thank you very much for having me here.
I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman for sharing her perspectives on Mr. Raghavan's contributions to society. Thank you, ma'am, for also sharing with us your personal experiences and your regard for Mr. Raghavan. We are truly honored to have each of you with us today. Let us hold dear the memories of Mr. Raghavan's contributions, not merely as a reflection of the past, but also as a guiding light for the future. As Mr. Gurumurthy said when he spoke, some lives are meant to be recollected and celebrated, and personally I can say there are very many takeaways from just listening about a few glimpses into his life. So I thank you very much for that. I now invite
ஓகே தலைவா. ஆடி